Our chronological rewatch of the Clone Wars has led us to the Malevolence. This is Sides of Coins. All right. So we're live. We're working out a couple kinks, but here we go. We're going to talk about Rising Malevolence. It's the next episode of the Chronological Rewatch, and today we have with us, as always, it seems, Michael.
Hello there.
But and then also joining us via the HoloNet is Nick.
How's it going, everyone?
All right, we got Nick on the phone, and Angela's producing for us today. So let's get into it. Let's talk with a brief synopsis of everything that happened. Basically, Count Dooku's got a new secret super weapon battleship that leaves no survivors anywhere it goes. It obliterates people, and it's pretty dangerous. And so they catch up with Plo Koon, and he's got 3 battle cruisers, and it blows up his whole crew. And they're stranded out in space, and Anakin and Ahsoka are trying to track them down and save them. So that's I think that's the best synopsis we got. I want to get general reactions from everybody. Michael, what'd you think?
I don't think I hated it as much as you guys did. No, actually, I it had its moments. It was okay.
Yeah,
especially for being the second episode of the entire series. Like, it's not too bad.
Yeah, for sure. As far as like the release order and everything, it was pretty enjoyable. I remember thinking at the time, they took a long time to release them. Mm-hmm. So it was this really long thing, and I got very bored with the Malevolence. But watching 3 20-minute episodes in order
was not too bad.
Was not bad at all. Nick, what do you think? This is your first time seeing any of these episodes, so I'm curious to see what you thought.
I like Plo Koon, so any chance I get to see him in action, it's a good time.
Yeah, Plo's great. And his relationship with the clones, too, was really awesome.
And Ahsoka is a nice tie-in.
Yeah, it was cool. Oh yeah, that's something we should really address too. They mentioned that he was the one that found Ahsoka. Mm-hmm. He was the seeker that I guess I don't know if he was a seeker.
He may not have been a seeker, yeah.
But yeah, he found Ahsoka and brought her to the temple. So yeah, that's really awesome. All right, so anybody have anything that jumped out at them throughout the episode? Anything they want to touch on?
For me, I was surprised both watching this, when I was much younger, and then rewatching this. Even seeing the movie, I was surprised at how kind of dark the whole plot is.
Yeah, for sure.
Not just not the ion cannon, super weapon. We see this in Star Wars all the time, but the fact that they were sending droids in to crack the shells of escape pods and vent in the atmosphere and kill the clones. I was like, whoa, okay, all right.
Yeah, it was
Dave,
was intense for sure, and and the fact that it started out with the 3 cruisers just getting all their power shut off and then just getting pulverized. That in and of itself was dark enough, and then like you said, to crack the eggshells was wild. Was that what you were expecting, Nick? I'm sure it might have been a bit of a shock.
Yeah, not at all. I was going into it, expecting the kids show, and all of a sudden, multiple like real life and death situations are happening to the clones and Plo Koon, and definitely not what I expected. And then definitely cool to see Plo Koon. I guess he used the Force to sustain himself in space.
Yeah,
I really like that fight scene.
Yeah, it was neat to see that Force power used. I've read a lot about it, but obviously the fact that he was able to sustain himself and hold his breath for that long while they awaited rescue was pretty awesome.
See, I must have missed that because I always thought it had something to do with his respirator or whatever it is. I don't know if that's supposed to be part of his species or if it's something he uses to like just function in real space kind of thing.
So I'm trying to remember because it was Legends, but it was canon at the time, so I think they were good to go with it. But in the book Outcast, Luke and his son Ben go to Keldor, and they spend a lot of time with them. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, it's a hyper oxygen-rich environment. And so he requires a lot of oxygen, so that mask is meant to sort of filter the air and make it breathable for him. And
so to me, I wondered if that's kind of what I thought. So I kind of figured that was what.
But I wasn't sure that and I might be wrong. But I didn't see any sort of like canisters or anything where he would have stored that. So, but either way, I mean, it was either his mask or using the Force. But it was pretty neat to see. The thing that stuck out at me was how he really truly cared about each and every one of the clones. We've seen that in the last episode with Yoda, but that line that he gets where they say, we're clones, we're meant to be expendable. I think it's Wolf that says it, and then he says, not to me, of course. So,
which is funny because Wolf shoots him in the back, in a couple movies later.
Not Wolf though.
Oh, was it not Wolf?
Yeah, because
Okay.
Wolf is actually in Rebels. He's one of the guys that cuts out the chip and figures out what Order 66 is. Major spoilers for Nick. Sorry, Nick, but it's been out for several years, so oops, I guess. But
Palpatine's the Emperor.
yeah. So we're just ruining everything right now. But all right, so let's go around the table here. Anybody have any final thoughts they want to say for this one? It's a pretty succinct episode. There's a big threat. We've got to handle it. And I guess we could talk about the fact that Anakin and Ahsoka's dynamic, right? How they're mirror images of each other, but there's a little bit of maybe hypocrisy there with Anakin and Ahsoka.
Yeah, Anakin just has some very slightly more developed sense of tact, which is really weird to say, but at least in concerning dealing with other superiors, whereas Ahsoka is still naive and young and wants to do the right thing, and Anakin's like, we're going to do the right thing regardless of what they say. And it's actually very interesting that what Anakin does and his actions are very similar to what you see Dooku doing in Jedi Lost.
Yeah, that's true.
Kind of completely going against what the council says, and they kind of retroactively say, oh, good job. But
yeah, and justifying the means a little bit.
Very much so.
So I know you're not a Game of Thrones guy, but Nick, you are, and so we can kind of touch on this real quick. It's sort of like how with Daenerys, how like she does quote unquote bad things or things that have a dark undertone in areas where it's more acceptable and there's good outcomes, right? So you don't really realize the darkness that's sort of brewing there. The people are okay to make these decisions, and then eventually they're taken out of those morally ambiguous situations and putting them in clear, cut and dry situations, and they often make the wrong choice. And that's when you're surprised that the quote unquote hero would make that drastic turn.
Right.
But yeah, it was interesting to see that groundwork get started. What about you, Nick? Anything else you want to say before we wrap up about this episode? Anything jumped out at you?
I thought it was a pretty solid episode by itself, and definitely set up the whole arc pretty nicely.
Yeah, for sure. So that's pretty good, tidy wrap up for Rising Malevolence. It was a good time. We enjoyed ourselves. A pretty solid episode. Make sure, if you're following along with us, to like the video, subscribe, leave us a comment, let us know what you thought, and just remember to brush your teeth at least 3 times a day. It's a helpful tip. And
oh my god, please. 3 times, huh?
Dude, 3 times.
3 times.
9 out of 10 dentists recommend you brush your teeth at least 3 times a day. Okay? You don't want to end up like Emperor Palpatine. And we'll be back next time. This has been Sides of Coins.